Welcome in to the Wednesday, November 27th edition of the Saints Insider Podcast. I'm Luke Johnson. I'll be your host today. I'm joined by columnist Rod Walker, beat writer Matthew Paris, and columnist Jeff Duncan. It is Thanksgiving season. It is the holiday season, so we're going to be going over like a little bit of a Saints holiday wish list today. Stuff we kind of want to see, stuff the Saints want to see out of some of their key players, figures in the organization today. Gentlemen, before we get started, I asked this question to the Saints locker room this week. Got to get your take. Number one Thanksgiving side. Rod, you're going first.
Does dressing count as a side?
Yeah, of course it does.
That's it, man. That's
dressing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not to be confused with stuffing.
First of all, actually, this is interesting because this sparked a locker room debate yesterday because a bunch of people said stuffing, and then Willie Gay was like, "Are you all out of your minds? It's dressing."
He's
of course,
from Mississippi
guy.
Yeah. I think stuffing.
What's the difference?
Stuffing, I think, is actually cooked inside the bird. It's stuffed in the bird, but it has just become known as stuffing, even if it's not cooked inside the bird. Like I grew up, it was called stuffing in Wisconsin.
Is gravy a side? Can I just
gravy does not count as a side.
Just seems like a side.
No, Matt, you're next.
I will do stuffing. Gravy?
Yeah, a side of gravy, I would say.
No.
Probably my go-to.
You put it on something.
Jeff
all right.
just wants the boat of gravy. He's going to go drink.
Lather
drink
you up in
himself to
gravy.
death.
The other day at the Dome, we had a big thing of gravy, and I got
But it was
like
the
four.
I did think it was weird that you were just...
Yeah, I got four basically ladles full.
But it was to put on top of something, though.
Not for me, man. I was just taking my spoon. eating
All
it
right.
straight.
Well, now you know that Jeff is the weirdo. If you didn't know that by now you know. Fun story about gravy.
Yep.
Thanksgiving. First one that went from my grandmother's house to my aunt's house when my aunt started hosting Thanksgiving back in the day. We sat down for Thanksgiving dinner and there was no gravy at the table. And my dad was like, "Where's the gravy?" And my aunt said, "We don't do gravy," which was an absolutely crazy thing to say. My dad, out of spite, did not go back to family Thanksgiving for 4 more years. We ate Thanksgiving dinner at a truck stop, and he made sure to let the family know we were having Thanksgiving dinner at a truck stop.
Sounds like Homer Simpson or something.
It's so great. I look. This is where legends are born, in spite. I love it so much. My choice, by the way, mac and cheese.
That would be my second choice.
Yeah, mac and cheese number one.
Does that count? Does that count?
Yeah, it counts.
Does it?
You don't...
Does it gravy
Gravy
count?
count?
Yeah,
Jeff
put
just
mac
eats
and
turkey.
cheese.
Mac and cheese.
Turkey
No,
and
but I
8
mean,
servings
like
of
mac
gravy.
and cheese, is that considered a
I'll be honest,
Thanksgiving
I don't
side?
normally have mac and cheese on Thanksgiving, but
Thank
I'm
you.
not going to knock it.
So Saints Insider is sponsored
Yeah.
by Bank Plus. Their banking decisions are actually made here in New Orleans by local bankers who know the community and take the time to know you. From small business to big business, home loans to bank anywhere technology, Bank Plus is here for New Orleans. Learn more at bankplus.net. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Okay, we are going to take a short break. We're going to come back with some quick news of the day, and then we're going to go into the Saints holiday wish list. Stick with us.
Nice bike.
Thanks. Can I get it back before Saturday?
That might be tough.
Whoa. Is it just you?
For now, let's take a look.
Can you reach that? How about?
There's no better place to parlay than Caesars Sportsbook. Parlay Builder gives you all the game day action from all across the league. Multiple games, legs, and props, all in one spot. It's so quick and easy, you can keep your focus on the games and your nachos. Or if you're focusing on one game, remember, you can place your same game parlays live during the action. Caesars Sportsbook, the only sportsbook app with Caesars rewards.
All right, welcome back. We will put the food discussion aside for the rest of the show and talk about more important stuff. Starting with the news of the week, Tano Passon back out at practice yesterday. Look, this is a guy who sometime this spring, we don't know exactly when or how it happened, but sometime this spring tore his Achilles. This is something that sometimes, like back in the day, this used to be a career ender. And certainly this is an injury that for a long time has taken a year plus to come back from it, to get on the field. We're talking about maybe 9 months, maybe 10 months for Tano Passon, and he's back at practice. Big deal for him. We'll see if it's a big deal for the Saints, but I think it's really cool. The team had him break down the practice yesterday, 1, 2, 3 Saints or whatever. And, Darren Rizzi said some really positive things about him. So, Saints fans, this is our Transaction Wire segment. It is proudly sponsored by Associated Grocers. Join our team and help support the success of local independent retail grocers. Apply today for available positions at Associated Grocers. So Tano Passon, 21-day practice window opened up. And Rob, we've been seeing a lot of this guy around the facility, but pretty crazy recovery for this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to like Cam Akers. He came back like extremely fast from the same injury. I don't know how he came back so fast, but Tano, this guy, I just remember seeing him in training camp, just taking laps around the stadium. That's like every day that's what he was doing. And, just watching him walk, it didn't look bad at all. I mean, he looked pretty normal. So good to see him back. I know he's a guy that, that we've talked about the pass rushing issues. He definitely can probably help with that if he's able to come back.
Yeah, he's like an inside outside guy. He's a rotational player at the NFL level, but he's played some impactful football for the Saints over the years. What do you think, Matt? I mean, look, not very long removed from an Achilles injury. Who knows what kind of impact, if any, he'll have on the season, but it doesn't hurt to have a guy with some NFL skins on the wall back in the mix.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, they have 21 days to activate him, so if he takes the full 3 weeks, then you're pretty much there's going to be only 3 games left.
Yeah, like week 16, right?
Yeah, so, I think the impact he can create is probably minimal, but he is an interesting name. It would have been really interesting to see if he had been healthy in training camp, just because I think the Saints maybe would have had to make a tough decision among that defensive line group, like a guy like Isaiah Foskey. I was going to say Peyton Turner, but Peyton Turner had a good training camp and has had a good season. So I think maybe Isaiah Foskey would have been in danger.
Yeah, I think they would have been in a numbers game a little bit, right? You can only keep so many defensive linemen, defensive ends. But I think there's a new procedure that's been developed on the Achilles that's made it now.
Was that developed at LSU?
It might have been. I think didn't Quan Alexander also come back pretty quick from Achilles?
Quan Alexander, Aaron Rodgers almost came back. He was back to practice.
It's something they've developed. I think it may have been at LSU somewhere where they're basically making that repair in a totally different way, and it's really expedited the recovery process. And look, if nothing else, Rod, I know you agree with me on this. They just need to bring Tano on road trips. He'd be the first guy off the bus because that dude is intimidating. I mean, he is 6'5", and I bet he's got 3% body fat.
2% body fat, just absolutely chiseled from rock. Yeah. What were you going to say, Matt?
I don't know what his Achilles.
Let's not go too far down this path.
I'm just saying, put him on the bus, let him get off first, see if he plays or not.
Getting off the bus in Appleton, Wisconsin, shirtless. You're like, oh man,
we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Well, you had something, Matt, that was probably more productive than what Jeff just had to say.
Very productive.
I just wonder if Achilles injuries, it feels like this is where playing football maybe helps instead of basketball. If it feels like guys take longer in the NBA. That's a more damaging injury for NBA players than it is for football players, at least recently.
Yeah, you don't really need a lot of bounce at defensive end.
Right.
But it is. It is. Look, you've talked to a bunch of players come back from this. It's a difficult injury to come back from, not just because of the rehab process, but because your Achilles is. It's your plant. When you're planting your foot, it's a crucially important ligament. So we'll see what happens with Tano Passon. But I think it was just cool to have him back. Saints fans, Associated Grocers is hiring. If you're looking to join a team dedicated to supporting independent grocers, apply today. Your future star is here. All right, let's get into this holiday wish list. Let's frame this in a way. I want to kind of keep it open-ended. Is it something you want to see out of the player, coach, general topic? Is it something the team wants out of them? Is it something they want out of it? Take it any direction you want to go. But the first one we're going to do is Darren Rizzi, the Saints' interim head coach. He's off to a 2-0 start in this role. He's got 6 games left. And, just based off the way this is starting, maybe he's auditioning for the full-time, real-deal job, get the interim tag ripped off. So, Dunk, I actually want to start with you on this one. 6 games left. What's on your wish list? What's on Darren Rizzi's wish list? Saints wish list, et cetera.
Well, I think we talked about this last time. I think he needs kind of a signature win down the stretch to kind of solidify, I think, his spot for the interim head coaching job. Go to Green Bay and win a game like that. I want to see the Saints win a game maybe no one's expecting them to. Right now, that 3 of their 4 wins have been games we all expected, right? So I want to see Rizzy put his stamp on this job with some kind of signature moment. And I don't think we've gotten that yet, even though beating Atlanta was obviously good. I think that would elevate him maybe in some fence sitters' minds who are still wondering if he's the big name that they all want for this head coaching job. So that would be my wish list for him.
I'm going to go with his wish list, and I think it's to run the table. I mean, that would be his best argument to solidify this job. I don't think it's going to happen.
Now, let's see if Darren Rizzy's been a good boy for Santa on that one. Yeah.
But I just think doing something that, I mean, I don't know if that's been done before, but
No way that's been done.
right.
Well, he's already got more wins than any interim head coach in Saints history. So
Right.
There you go. Well, we'll just give him the job now then, I guess. But and then for me, I'm interested to see whether the persona and the personality can carry over the rest of the time. I was in the locker room the other day and I did a story on kind of the tools that Darren Rizzy has used.
literal tools.
Yeah, literal like construction tools that he's brought to team meetings that he's using them as metaphors for the group, and they've kind of bought in. But everyone talks about how much they like Rizzy, but I think what was evident to me in that is I was interviewing Colin Saunders about it, and he was chiming, we were having a conversation, but like Nathan Shepard was right next to us, and he jumped in the conversation and like really went to bat for Rizzy as well. And I just think it was a good example of like how much that actually naturally has an effect and how much guys like Darren Rizzy. The fact that Nathan Shepard, who is kind of a quiet guy, very nice, but the fact that he wanted to get in on the conversation, and then John Ridgway too is also kind of chiming in. So I just think it's like a topic that players have really bought into, and I think it's a good way that Darren Rizzy has kind of had the pulse of this team.
Yeah, for me, I think when you look at the schedule, you look at the Giants and the Raiders, you think those are probably gimmies, or they should be.
No, nothing's a gimme. Yeah, nothing's a gimme. But like those are winnable games.
Yeah, he should win those 2 games. So I don't think they go to Lambeau and win on a Monday night. I just don't see that happening. But so to me, it just comes down to those other 3 games: the Commanders. Start with the Rams, the Commanders, and the Bucks. I think he needs to probably get 2 or 3 of those. 2 of those. If you can get 2 of those, I think he's doing good. Especially to me, the Rams game is really big for him because that way he starts out 3-0. And, I think that would be a good win despite the Rams' 5-6 record. I think they are a good team. So if he can get that one, I think it really helps him. And I want to see what happens if they do lose the game. Like, he has all this energy, but, once they lose, you have to see, like, okay, now can you get that energy back? Because that's going to be his big test for me.
If they go 4-2, you think he deserves legit 4-2 during Rizzy's, or I guess that 4-2 in these last 6 games? Do you think he is legitimately
because I think
a contender?
If he goes 4-2, that means he's
6-2.
6-2.
Yeah, that would be 6-2 total. But that means he's 6-2. But it also means that he beat some of those teams I just named. That means he either beat the Rams or the Commanders or the Bucks at the end of the season. And I guess it depends on how relevant that last game is. The Bucks may have clinched the division. It might be sitting starters. I don't know. But yeah, I think 6-2. I think that gets him the job.
I think I agree with that. If not gets him the job, at least makes him a real strong contender for the job.
Yeah.
And it's been my take that if the Saints do decide like, hey, this thing that we've been trying to hold together for so long is not going to be a legitimate option for us, and we need to really kind of hit the reset button on the roster, get younger, get some of these big contracts out of the way, and eat them, go through some difficult times. I think Rizzy is probably a good person to guide you through that, especially if he shows that he can take this very adverse situation that they were in and turn it into something positive, even if it doesn't result in a playoff run, which is very unlikely. At least make them relevant down the stretch. I think that makes him at least a viable option for the team. Kind of depending on which path they want to take forward. For me, a holiday wish list for Rizzy is just like keep tapping into this boundless energy, right? Like don't let the just awful grind of the NFL season wear that out, because I think that's been a huge part of what they've accomplished so far. 2 games under him. So that energy is really important. I think it's infectious. I think it's gone through the locker room, and you can see it and feel it around the team. So they got to keep that up, even if they lose this week's game, even if they lose a game or two down the stretch. They need to kind of keep that energy up. All right, let's transition a little bit onto a player, Derek Carr. He's played in 8 games this season. 4 of those games, he's been magnificent. The last 2 and the first 2. The 3 in between, or 4 in between, he was really up and down. Had some good moments, some really bad moments in those games. The Chiefs game, that first pass, one of the worst you'll see in an NFL game. But look, this is a guy who's potentially playing for his future in New Orleans as well, right? So, Rod, I'll start with you because you were really the most recent one to write a story on Derek Carr. What do you think is on the holiday wish list for Derek Carr here?
I just think he needs to continue doing what he's doing. He's done a pretty good job, especially these past 2 weeks, taking care of the ball, not taking sacks, and, kind of keeping the chains moving. I think the one thing I like to see from him is not really that he needs to do it, but I just kind of like to see him at some point just put together like this game-winning drive late in the game and just kind of have that moment, because he hadn't really had like a moment. I mean, he's hit the big plays to Rashid and all that, but I think he needs to have just that game-winning drive that, that wins a game for this team. And
yeah,
I think the fans would really buy into that.
Yeah, and that's something that he was kind of known for in Oakland,
right.
or Vegas, or wherever he was playing. He played with a lot of bad teams that were always in those situations where you're down in the fourth quarter, you got to go make a play, and he made a lot of those plays. It just hasn't really materialized here in New Orleans. We've seen it a couple times, even this year, where they've scored a touchdown late in the game to take the lead, but then the defense blew it. So what you want to see
is him trailing and going to win one.
Right.
Yeah, and I just think.
And even like the Philly game, they scored to go ahead, but then Philly took the lead back, and then he threw an interception on the ensuing drive. So you want to see the actual clincher.
Yeah. I just think he needs that moment. I think it'll get some fans, because the fans still haven't bought into Carr despite, how he's played recently. Like they're kind of off of him. And I just think that's what he's going to take, I think, for him to win them over.
Yeah. For what it's worth, Carr is having a very good statistical season again. He had a really good statistical year last year, even though that was it's really hard to base his performance on pure statistics last year, because there was, again, really good games and really bad games in there. But again, this year, I think he's top 10 in the NFL in quarterback rating. He's top 10 in EPA. He's above, I think, Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow in EPA. EPA per dropback, because he's only played 8 games. He's only taken 7 sacks. His completion percentage is way up there. He's playing well, but Matt, I think that the statistics don't always tell the full story. So what's your take on this?
Yeah, I think he's played better than last year.
I agree.
I think he's played much better than last year, actually. I think really only the Chiefs game is maybe the game where you're like, what's going on here? And I guess the Panthers game, but I'm going to pass on that just because he's coming back from injury and he looked rusty. So as for, I think there are 2 things that would maybe help him. One, I just think from his perspective, he just crushed Vegas, letting you go, big time revenge game. Like that would be kind of fun. And as much as Derek Carr hasn't a positive persona, I think he would lean into that if they crushed him. I think he'd be fun after the game about that. And then for me, I'd actually kind of like to see him catch a pass from Taysom.
I love that.
They keep having that look, and he's kind of open every time. Now, I don't know if you're actually going to expose your starting quarterback to that, but I just want to see it happen, and I think if they time it right, that could actually get there. But I'll be honest, I don't know if there's anything Derek Carr can do that this season that's going to really sway the Saints one way or another, whether to keep him. Either I think he's played well enough to be all right, we want to keep him or not. Does the last 6 weeks, I feel like there are other guys on this roster that the last 6 weeks could really go one way or another to determine whether they're back next year or whatever. I just think the cap number and stuff is kind of complicated to the point where you're probably going to make I just don't think the last 6 games matter as much for him personally in terms of his future next year.
What is his cap number next year? It's north
50
of 50
million.
Yeah. And then if they make him a post June 1 cut, which would be like what they would do if they did that, you're still talking about eating $50 million on your cap for a player. I mean, throughout much of the offseason for a player who's not going to be on your team. So it's a complicated set of circumstances for sure, depending on what direction the Saints want to take. But really, there's also only 2 more years left on the deal, correct?
I guess, yes. I would just say that I think the next coach will have more of a say on Derek Carr than maybe his play would. Maybe the coach would use the last 6 weeks in format. I just think that's going to be a next coach decision more so.
100%. I think whoever is the next coach, that'll be up to them. And also think at tops, he's probably here 1 more year. I think whatever happens, I think that's his timeline here. And why not give him the ball on like a jet sweep? Can't we wish for that? Just give it to him. I mean,
y'all trying to get him killed. Huh?
Yeah, give him the ball on a jet sweep.
Yeah,
that's not
a
right word.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Give him the ball on a single prop sweep.
Yeah, and my wish would be for him to get a Pro Bowl invitation. I mean, I know he's been to the Pro Bowl before, but I think he's always been, for the most part. I think 1 year he wasn't an alternate, but all those other ones were alternate invitations. I think that would be big for him in here. But I agree with Rod. He needs a signature moment. He needs a go drive and beat the Packers on Monday Night Football kind of moment.
In the snow, like Jameis.
Yeah, like Jameis. He needs something like that. He hasn't really. It's weird that he hasn't had that, and it's not always his fault. But just the circumstances haven't played out where he's had the ball and a chance to win the game. I know he's had some game-winning drives, but he hasn't had that moment, and I think he's got to get that. And I'm not sure even then. Some fans are just dug in against him for whatever reason.
But I think that was kind of my wish list was going to be to get the fans off his back. But I do think that we've seen a lot less vocal displeasure with Carr this year than we did last year. I think he's I don't know if you would say popular in New Orleans.
He's definitely not popular.
But I don't think he's public enemy number one like he was last year.
Mike Thomas he is. But besides that.
He's not being booed.
And this is public enemy number 2.
Yeah. Mike Thomas is also a fan watching on his couch right now. So, that stung. Yeah.
We still got him on the set.
Yeah, we do. Player of the Year 2019. He was awesome. Okay, so yeah, I mean, look, I think I'm with you on all that with Derek. I think he's played very well this year for the most part. I do want to see him put one of those drives together because that's something we haven't seen out of him this year. It's something the team really needs. Matt and I were just talking about this week. They haven't had a come from behind in the final 4 minutes win since Dennis Allen's first game as head coach, 2022 season opener against Atlanta. So they want one of those.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, let's switch gears to another guy on offense, but Klint Kubiak here. Look, he started off the season. Look, 2 games in, everybody's like, where is he going to be the head coach next year? 91 points in 2 games, and then obviously the injuries and everything else. And the season kind of fell off the rails. A lot of people stopped talking about Klint Kubiak as a hot coordinator prospect, but look, I think the last couple games they've got a little bit of their mojo back offensively. Certainly in the first half against Atlanta. Really the whole game last week against the Browns. They're getting some players back, and you're starting to see some of the good stuff again. So I'll start this one off. For me, what I want to see out of Klint Kubiak the rest of the year is, can you make the adjustment when things don't go your way? Because when we've seen them play well this year, it's been start to finish almost, and when we've seen them really struggle, they have a good half or a good moment. They had 27 points in the second quarter against Tampa Bay earlier this year with Spencer Rattler at quarterback, and it looks great. And then a switch is made, an adjustment is made. In the Falcons game, MVS has 3 catches for 108 yards or whatever in the first half. And in the second half, they put A.J. Terrell on him, and the Saints go 3 and out on 5 straight possessions. The Eagles game, they had this great offense for the first 2 weeks, and the Eagles go like, we're going to put this bear front out there. You can't run the wide zone, and they looked inept the whole game. Can Klint Kubiak figure out a way, now that he's got a little bit more time with this offense, with these players, to make the adjustments when the defense comes up with an answer for what you're throwing at them? I want to see that in these last 6 games. I think they're going to have opportunities. They're not going to go out there and score 35 points every week like they did against the Browns last week. Rod, what do you want to see?
I just think they need to just find ways to win. I just think this team is too limited at receiver right now to get back to those glory days of week 1 and 2. So I think we're just not going to see that again this season. Maybe against the Raiders. I mean, that's a team that's probably going to be, that's going to probably lay down. But so I just think just continue to do what they're doing. I think we need to just continue seeing what we saw with Taysom and Alvin, because that's, those are probably the best 2 players on offense right now. So just use them a lot. I think and I do want to see, again, we talked about Carr. I want to see him continue to play well. But I don't know Kubiak with how limited he is at receiver now. I just don't know if we're going to see the things that I would like to see.
Addendum to my holiday wish list, yes. Taysom Hill, 10-plus touches every game. All right, Matt? I'm speaking directly to
I was
kind
of surprised that you didn't lead with Taysom.
Yeah, my bad. I'm out of my role here. I don't know why.
Rizzy brought this up the other day, and it was something that I hadn't really considered, but I thought it was a really good point, was that this team kind of struggles on the plus side of the 40 between like that and the red zone, and I just would like to see them, at least for the rest of the year, kind of work through those issues. I think that's kind of, and then the penalties, you got to cut down on the penalties. Long term, if we're going to go a wish list for him, I mean, I think he's made a pretty solid case for being here next year if they hire a defensive head coach. Like, even if they don't bring Rizzy back, and let's say they hire Aaron Glenn. Now, I don't know who Aaron Glenn necessarily has picked out in terms of his staff, but I think Klint Kubiak and the staff in general has made a very solid case for at least sticking around if that's what the next coach wants.
Yeah, I'll see him get, further kind of establishing his coaching credentials here. I think he's evolved as the season's gone on. I like how that last game plan was the best, I thought, of the year for him.
I agree.
They had a great plan for Myles Garrett. There was a lot of things that worked in that game. And I like that they're getting the tight ends involved. We've talked about that. I'd like to see more of that down the stretch. I think they're going to have to. They're going to have to lean into the personnel strengths they have, and that's running backs and tight ends right now. So I think he just keeps dialing up this formula because that's what they want to do, and hopefully keep that offensive line healthy so he can do it, because I think that's the other key. And we haven't really seen yet, in these last 2 games, maybe that's a credit to the offensive line, but Carr hasn't had a ton of pressure on him, and I think that's his kryptonite. When he gets pressure, he's not the same quarterback. Most quarterbacks aren't, but particularly Derek Carr. And I think the staff knows that, so they're doing a lot of things. They're moving him around more, and it's working. So can they keep doing it?
He's been sacked 7 times in his 8 starts, and I think that's why we're seeing him play a lot better this year.
Yeah. He's getting it out quick, and he's living another day. He's good at that. And I think sometimes that's stuff that fans don't appreciate enough. I know Drew Brees late in his career used to always talk about. Did me ring a bell when I bring up?
No, only Bill Parcells.
Okay. Parcells. No, Peyton.
Sean Payton.
Okay.
Well, that's the same thing.
Okay, but he talked about like avoiding negative plays. It's like a huge thing, and people don't appreciate it because it doesn't kind of show up right in the stat sheet. But I think Carr's done a good job of that. Like when he sees it's not the plays dead in the water, he just moves on, and it's not a negative play. He's not trying to do too much. So,
all right. We are going to take a quick break here, guys, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some defensive issues that we're going to address with wish lists for the next 6 weeks of the season. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, we are back. We are going to talk about the Saints pass rush. This is like the enigmatic question of the season, I feel like. Look, they go out and they sign Chase Young this offseason. He looks great in training camp. Cam Jordan lost a bunch of weight. He's coming off that injury-plagued season last year. Peyton Turner is finally healthy. Carl Granderson is an ascending player. We're like, maybe their pass rush can get back. Hasn't really been the case. Been better the last couple of weeks, I think, since they made the transition to Brian Young, but not where they wanted to be. So, 6 games left in the season. Can they turn it around? Can they get these big-name guys involved, these high-profile players, first-round picks, guys that are making $10, $15 million a year?
I mean, we're 11 games in. I mean, this is probably who they are. I don't think it just all of a sudden changes, but I'm sure you know what my wish list is going to be, right?
Can Chase Young get like
13
more sacks?
That's all he needs? That's all?
So, yeah, I mean, you'd like to see him get better in that department, but I just don't know if it's going to happen. I just think this is who this team is, and they just haven't been able to fix it these past couple of years. So it'll be on the draft wish list, I assume, next year too. So
one of the things that's kind of weirded me out is outside of Alontae Taylor and some of these like nickel pressures that they've brought, they've gotten like no production out of their linebackers. Demario Davis, I think, has 1 sack this year. And he was like 5 or 6 the last couple of years. That's. I mean, obviously you want to win with your front four. You want those guys to go make plays for you, but like it hasn't been happening, and they haven't really been finding ways to dial up pressure from other players outside of that 3-sack game by Alontae Taylor in the opener and a couple other. I think Ugo Amadi had one. Yeah. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird they haven't been able to just get home on this, and it's obviously like a huge part of what they do defensively.
Right. Well, I think they haven't brought as much pressure is because the explosives have been such a problem.
That's also true.
That they don't want to leave as many holes open for opposing offenses. So if we're talking about a wish list for the defensive line, I'd actually kind of like to see Cam Jordan continue the rate that he's been on. I think he's played well the last 2 weeks. And I predicted, which is just wrong, but before the year that he'd lead the team in sacks. So
who's leading now?
I think he's 4 back.
I think it's Brian Brzee leading the team
it's
right now.
5.5.
Like 4? How many?
5.5?
Yeah, 5. Okay.
Yeah, which like also is a little bit misleading. So he's got like 5.5 sacks and like 10 pressures. But Brzee's been a little disappointing for me this year. The sack numbers are up there, but it's kind of feels almost like empty stats.
I would kind of say that like a dominant defensive tackle is maybe more of a need for this team than defensive end is, even though like I don't know what this draft is going to shake out like, but I would almost maybe be tempted to grab there than like an explosive pass rusher, depending on how like what this class looks like. I haven't done the research on that, but I would go Cam Jordan just because I think if he could have like a little renaissance, that'd be kind of cool to see.
What about you, Dunk?
What was your preseason prediction? Cam Jordan was going to lead the team in sacks? I don't even remember that.
That was like when we were doing our positional breakdowns over the summer. I said a successful season for him would be 5 sacks.
Is he at 1 right now? 1.5?
He has 1.
Yeah.
That's actually probably more of an attainable. That would be a successful season for him if he finished with 5.
I don't know which was worse, yours or Rod's prediction there.
Trey Henderson has 11.5 sacks, by the way. I know Saints fans like Trey Henderson.
I mean, he's 11.
Trey Henderson's stats.
Isn't he leading the league in sacks?
Yeah.
I think he's leading the league. No, look, I mean, I think that they are what they are at this point. I mean, Rod said it best. I mean, they're not going to change much. I think it's got to be a top priority in the offseason. I think an interior defensive pass rusher would be huge if they could find one. But I don't think we're going to see much difference out of this group at this point. I do think Peyton Turner has played a quietly productive season. He's been, for the most part, healthy. So I think that gives them a little flexibility what they do up front. But I don't think we're going to I think we're going to see a lot of changes on this defense in the offseason, and I think the defensive line is going to be one area where we're going to see some changes.
I mean, they could bring in an entirely new staff that wants to put in a 3-4 defense, and that their whole mode for how they scout and draft players is completely different.
Right.
I think it's totally a possibility.
But the one thing I would say is, like, I know we talk about this a lot, and y'all going to roll your eyes at me, I know, like you do most shows, but
No.
yeah, but like
You, gravy drinker?
just, man, the preseason, don't get caught up in watching these guys rush against third-string offensive linemen that are going to be bagging groceries. You know, happens every year. It's not you all. I'm talking about just everybody.
Right.
Every year, I see this, and there's context that has to be provided there. Who's he going against? If he's going against the starter on the other team, then it gives validation. But Chase Young going against the third stringer. I remember when we were out in San Francisco, they were playing their third string line. Everybody was going crazy about him, and he's not going against Trent Williams. That's who he's going to go against in the game, and we see the difference. So it drives me crazy every year. So whatever, I had to get that off my
Davis
chest.
did mention that he thought Chase Young would be in the defensive MVP conversation. So
yeah, well, DeMario's also kind of Mr. Optim. He's the Derek Carr of the defense.
It's true. It's true. One note I did. I agree with you on the defensive tackle thing. I was looking this up during the bye week. Brian Brzee is going into last week's game. Out of qualified defensive tackles, is the lowest graded run defender among qualified defensive tackles. Nathan Shepard was like the fourth lowest, and Colin Saunders was the best of the bunch at like 107th out of 138.
Well, yeah, Brzee been so bad he lost his starting job again. They went back to Colin Saunders, who had lost his job to Brzee because they thought he would play better there, and they just haven't found an answer.
Yeah,
I mean,
the run defense on the interior has been a problem.
Yeah, and look, I remember a couple of years ago, DA was really high on Jordan Davis from Georgia, and that kind of guy is what they need, some kind of dominant interior, like a Vita Vea kind of guy that can do both. Those are hard to find.
They are hard to find, and like Vita Vea, I think, was a first-round pick. Jordan Davis was a first-round pick, and this is an organization who I think, when you're looking at that type of player, like a nose tackle type of player, they don't necessarily value those guys as a first-round value.
Right.
If one of those guys slipped to the second round, then I'm sure they'd consider it. But like, I remember a couple years ago when they drafted Brzee, I was thinking Brian Brzee, and a lot of people were thinking Mozzie Smith.
Yep.
Nose tackle type of player who's kind of flamed out in the NFL, but they haven't valued that position at a first round type of value in the past.
And I think that same draft, correct me if I'm wrong, one of those drafts, Kalijah Cansey came out, and he's an undersized guy.
That was the Brzee draft.
And he's ended up, he's been hurt a lot, but when he's been on the field, he's been very productive.
When Washington's defense was really good with Chase Young and Montez Sweat on the edge, they generated most of their pressure through the interior with Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen. Like, there are different ways to build a defense, and Washington invested like first rounders on all those guys, but I just think you can really make a difference with interior pressure, and I think that's kind of a thing in the NFL within the last 5 to 10 years that's really taken hold.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that's just something that this team has.
Yeah, I agree. Even when you think back to, I know you weren't covering the team then, but some of these really good Saints pass rushers from the 18, 19, 20 season, talking about like Sheldon Rankins and David Onyemata as your interior pass rushers. Guys were very productive there. So I agree. It's an area where I think if they were to beef that up, you maybe see some more production out of their ends. All right, let's wrap this up with our final one. This one is kind of near and dear to my heart because I love these plays. Let's talk about the back end and specifically the turnovers. Currently, the Saints rank 10th in the NFL with 15 takeaways, but they've really slowed down. They've only got 2 in their last 5 games. A couple notable drops, and when you're thinking about ways to completely change the complexion of a game, there's no bigger way to do that outside of maybe a kick return or punt return for a touchdown than forcing turnovers on the defensive side of the ball. So the Saints are obviously down one of their starting quarterbacks in Paulson and Debo. They traded the other one in Marshawn Lattimore. They've got Alontae Taylor now on the outside. They've got a rookie on the other side in Kool-Aid McKinstry. Ugo Amadi at the slot position. Tyrann Mathieu, Will Harris at safety. So let's talk about these turnovers. What do you want to see in these last 6 weeks? They've got Matthew Stafford, Jaden Daniels, Aiden O'Connell, Tommy DeVito, Jordan Love, and Baker Mayfield. Let's make a little prediction.
What? How many turnovers?
6 games. How many turnovers? They've got.
We're doing just picks or
they've got 15 takeaways. I think it's 12 interceptions and 3 fumble recoveries. So total takeaways.
It depends. Did DeMario get his hands delivered from Amazon? Because that may factor in
that was so good. That was so good.
Black Friday's this week. Maybe it's coming in.
He's waiting for the Black Friday.
Yeah, DeMario. Let's be clear about something. DeMario does not need to wait for Black Friday sales.
I'm going to say 6 games. I'm going to go with 5. I don't know if they're going.
5 turnovers, 6
Let me go
games.
higher than 5 because.
Higher than 5. Huh?
Yeah, I'm gonna go higher than 5. They got it.
What, 6?
Lambeau will be a mess, and Tommy DeVito will throw him about 2. So I'm gonna go 8.
8 turnovers.
high.
All right. So Rod is optimistic. Matt, I have
Wow.
a sense that you're not so optimistic about this.
I'll go 4, but coming against the Giants and the Raiders. I'll go 3 DeVito, 1.
Whoever.
It's Aiden O'Connell right now, but I think it's gonna be old friend Desmond Ritter by the time the game happens.
They could get 8 from him.
He's still there, right?
Tyrann Mathieu loves Desmond Ritter.
Yeah, Desmond Ritter's terrible. I think he got in the game
I think
last
half
week,
of Tyrann's picks have come off
and I
in
think
a
he
Saints
got
uniform.
in the
come off
game
to
last
Desmond
week
Ritter.
and immediately turned it over like the second play. He got hit, strip sack. That's what I want to see. Forget the interceptions. I want to see them get a strip sack or a sack fumble. Remember, who was it? Nathan Shepard couldn't pick it up.
Down or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, they need to be able to take advantage of those opportunities when they have them. They just haven't done it. And maybe it goes back to the same thing we said earlier. This is just who they are. You know, some guys, Tyrann Mathieu is one of those guys. Usually, I know he dropped 1, but for the most part, that guy's money when the ball's in the air. They don't have a lot of those other guys like that. I think it's an innate ability that you have or you don't. And for the most part, they lack those guys right now. I'd like to see maybe Kool-Aid McKinstry get a pick or something. You know, like he's a guy I haven't seen enough of with the ball skills yet. Not saying he doesn't have them, I just haven't seen it.
I don't think I've seen him get his hand on a ball yet.
I know, that's what I mean. It feels like they haven't gone at him a lot either. I think they're going right at Taylor so much. But there's an opportunity there for him, I think, these last few games. We haven't talked about him, but let's see what they got in him. You know, in these last few games, he's starting the rest of the way. So it'll be kind of fun to see his development. And can he do that? I don't know. Did he arrive from Alabama with that?
No, that was the one thing he never did at Alabama. I think he only had like 1 or 2 interceptions in his college career. Mm-hmm. They didn't throw at him a lot,
right?
But he was really he was kind of billed as like the technique guy who's not going to gamble,
right?
Like what's his name for Washington?
Oh, Emmanuel Forbes.
Right? Was a gambler, right? He had a ton of picks in college, but like he was a guy who would take risks, and that's not who Kool-Aid McKinstry has been in his career.
What's your number, Jeff? Did you give a number?
Oh, I'm going to go like 3.
3.
Yeah, I'm going
low. You want to
low.
place a Clancy's bet on that?
I'm going low. Should we triple or nothing on that?
There can't be a nothing because I want to get my 2. You already
no way. We'll figure it out. By the way, I am going to make a concerted effort to get Clancy's to be a sponsor since we've talked about him so much, given all the free advertising.
Yeah. Why would they pay us?
Yeah.
Of course, I don't
considering we
think they
talk
really
about Clancy's on the show. Clancy's.
You just
New
want them to
Orleans fine
sponsor
dining.
our bet.
Exactly.
You want them to pay off your bet. You don't care about the pod.
Trust me, I'm trying.
You just want them to pay for us.
I'm working it. I'll be there Christmas Eve. Anybody wants to come?
All right, I'll take the high number. I'll go 9. 9 big takeaways down the stretch. I think this
9.
Yep.
9.
Yep. No, 9.
Teams
9.
had 2 in the last 5.
I'm good. They've had 2 in the last 5. And they're going to go on a binge. 9. But I'm with you, though. I think they've had a number of opportunities on these strip sacks to make big plays, and they haven't fallen on the ball.
Right.
There was it the Atlanta game? Mm-hmm. Big one down in the red zone that they couldn't come up with. So I think they get that turned around just because.
There's a variance that eventually you get them.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, I think that'll do it for our show. We are going to be out of practice later today, and then we're going to take tomorrow off. I'm going to stuff my face. I'm not going to drink a bowl of gravy like Mr. Duncan over there, but I hope all of you have a great Thanksgiving. I hope all of you have a great Thanksgiving. Norman, our producer, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving as well. We will be back with another show on Friday previewing the Saints-Rams Week 13 game. And please stick with us. If you're watching this on YouTube, give us a 5-star rating, subscribe. If you're listening to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get it, we appreciate you. Let us know what you think. We will be back on Friday.